ambitious young politicians. I got Zach Abdi on deck there. Let's bring him in. So, I gave some background earlier. Some people have joined the show since. I was talking about the Alberta Liberals earlier. Not typically a party we talk a lot about here, but you responded to it with a TikTok video, and I thought it was great. It was upbeat and optimistic and corrected me on what you felt was wrong with it. And you are an aspiring Liberal candidate in Edmonton City Centre, I believe.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for having me, Corey. It's good to be on the show for the first time. It's kind of sad to see your show come to an end. But yeah, as you alluded to, I am running for the Alberta Liberal Party nominee for Edmonton City Centre. And a bit about my background, I was born and raised in Ontario, but I've been living in Alberta for almost the last 10 years and in downtown. And some of the issues that I've been hearing on the doorsteps is public safety, issues with petty crime on the rise, talking to self-employed workers and them not getting a fair deal when it comes to the gig economy, and as well as a few conversations about a provincial sales tax.
Okay, and I guess being in the urban area of Edmonton, the issues are very similar to here where I'm in downtown Calgary. As you said, petty crimes, we have an addiction epidemic. It's led to a lot of challenges for people living in urban areas, and you get everything from shoplifting to bike thefts or car break-ins. Is that sort of what you're addressing? Or?
Yeah, part of the reason why I'm running is a little bit more about myself is my partner and I, we recently bought a condo in downtown Edmonton 2 years ago. We love it here. It's amazing. We're close by the river valley, and we've gotten to know the community and connect with folks. And a lot of the petty crime that we've been seeing, it's usually stuff to do with needles on the floor, public drug use, public defecation. And a lot of that stuff isn't being addressed by the current incumbent MLA and as well as the current government. And there's things that we can do in the short term, such as, for example, installing public bathrooms or working with the city and funding public bathrooms in and around the downtown core, right? Our vulnerable neighbors do have a right to some dignity. And businesses too, right? A lot of the businesses, the vandalism they see against their property, it's usually confrontational and has to do with maybe access to the bathroom or maybe staying inside. And we can do things to alleviate some of that pressure.
Okay, so we've got a general election that looks like probably about 7-8 months away coming up. And presumably, you'll probably be running in it. And it's something that you'd responded to. And as I said in my earlier show, I mean, the Liberal Party, for people who don't know, it's the oldest party in Alberta. They were our very first governing party with Rutherford. They had ups and downs, but what you'd spoken on as well, of course, the highest point in living memory was with Lawrence Decore leading it, the former mayor of Edmonton, very well respected Albertan, and he came very close to actually winning the election and becoming a Liberal premier. Again, I argued it was only he had the ill timing of catching the wave of Ralph Klein that sort of just overwhelmed him, and he didn't quite make it in, but he was running on a very you questioned the word conservative, fair enough, but a fiscally tight campaign platform at that time because debt was high and interest rates were high. But your party's been in kind of a long, slow decline ever since then, and you've got a lot of rebuilding to do, and you're currently kind of stuck with an interim leader. What I was impressed with was your optimism and still going forward. How do you look to make a mark, though, within such a short time till the election?
For me, that's a good question. And to be a Liberal in Alberta, you have to be optimistic. And to me, yes, it's a fact that we have been in decline. And I think a big reason for that has to do with controlling the narrative. A lot of folks get us mixed up with the federal Liberals and can't seem to distinguish the two. And for us, it's just going back to our roots. And Lawrence Decore, to me, he's not just one of my favorite Liberal politicians, but one of my favorite politicians, not just in Alberta, but all of Canadian history, and for the things that he's advocated for. And if we go back to our roots, talk about fiscal responsibility, because I'm a firm believer, a strong economy leads to better outcomes for everyone, and we can do a better job in tackling social issues when the economy is strong. And a lot of that message has been lost just due to more press and attention going to the rival parties such as the UCP and the NDP.
Yeah, well, Alberta had kind of current is we'd always been more of a multi-party system, or at least recently, we had a number of NDP seats, we had a large number of Liberal seats, we had the Progressive Conservatives we had Progressive Conservatives in Wildrose. But we've kind of fallen into a true two-party system for the time being. And personally, I like to see more parties in there. I really actually do. And I think, a Liberal presence would help reduce the polarity. I mean, I don't want to see a Liberal government. Look, I'm an apologetic libertarian conservative, but I think our legislature would be a lot more balanced if we had sort of that voice in the middle sitting in there as more of a classical Liberal anyways.
Absolutely. And that's what the Alberta Liberal Party is for me, right? Liberalism in terms of the classical sense, right in the center, strong on fiscal issues and also moderate on social issues. And we can get there if we get a better job in controlling the narrative. And when it comes to representation, I do agree, right? If you look, I know federal issues and provincial issues are two different matters. But if the fact that the federal Liberals picked up 2 seats in Alberta and managed to capture, I think, slightly under 20% of the popular vote in the province, we can do that as well here. We just have to build our party's presence, rebuild the infrastructure, and just focus on positive messaging.
Yeah, so I mean, the messaging, and another challenge you have. I mean, have you heard, or I'm not sure how tapped you are with the party mechanism? You need a leader. John's been doing what he can as an interim, but is there going to be something scheduled to try and draw somebody in? I know it was an unfortunate outcome, seeking a leader. Nobody put their name in, kind of, but you're going to have to get somebody in before the general election, because that's where you need to speak for and brand the party.
In terms of right now, for me, my focus is just on the campaign and connecting with folks in Edmonton City Centre. The party is working on what the next steps are, but I can say with positivity and certainty that the Alberta Liberal Party will be around, and I will be a candidate on the ballot.
Okay, great. I saw actually, I think it was on Twitter or somewhere else too, there's another Edmonton gentleman who's running for a nomination. So there's some folks on the ground like yourself who are still planning on making a go of the next election. So you're not vanishing yet.
Oh, absolutely. One of our regional directors, Irene Hunter, she's the regional chair for Edmonton, and she's been doing a really good job in building the party's presence in Edmonton. I believe we have Abdi Bakul, who's considering running in Millwoods. And there is Jacob, who's also running in I believe, Strathcona, Sherwood Park area. So there's a lot of things happening in the Edmonton area, and the party is rebuilding our infrastructure here.
Okay, and you did touch on one of the challenges your party's had is, whether you like it or not, you end up wearing the reputation of the federal Liberals. And I do believe the current provincial Liberal Party doesn't have a formal tie to the federal party aside from the name.
No, and there's no formal links or anything, right? And it goes back to just sticking with the narrative, right? Because the Alberta Liberal Party, we do well when we control the narrative and when we focus on issues that are relevant to the province and to Albertans, and we can make a comeback, right? And we've seen Liberal parties in Western Canada bounce back. We've seen it in the case in Yukon and Manitoba. They made some small but steady progress, and Saskatchewan, they're also making their gains there too.
Yeah, well, and it's starting, everything starts small initially. I was with the Alberta Alliance Party way back when we had 1 seat almost 20 years ago, I think it was, and worked that up eventually through a lot of work and compromise up into official opposition, and then became the Wildrose Party, and then we blew it all up and screwed it up. But a party can come from a small seed and with some work can still rebuild.
Oh, absolutely. And Rachel Notley is one thing I admire about her leadership is proof of that, right? She built the NDP up, right? And we can do the same thing with the Liberals. It's just, and one thing I'm excited about, a lot of the people who are working with Irene and with the party in the Edmonton area are young folks, and they're committed to the party and they're committed to the Liberal cause.
Great. Like one of my commenters there, I think it was Paradoxy. Yeah, it was mentioning, and I wanted to ask too, the Alberta Party, I mean, they're of a very similar type platform. I think trying to land in what they call the middle, though always saying middle makes it hard to define where you actually are. But I mean, sometimes some of the resources perhaps or support's being drained in multiple directions. Have you been in communication with the Alberta Party at all?
No, but I'll actually tell you a funny story. I'm not involved with the Alberta Party, but I actually did, and maybe some of the folks at the Alberta Liberal Party will get a bit upset, but I actually did take out a membership with the UCP, and I did cancel it a week later because I was just so fed up with the direction of the party. There's no really third option or alternative. And for me, the Alberta Party is a party that kind of shifts with every leader and doesn't really have a true cause or values. And it was actually when I was walking with my partner and our dog by the Lawrence Decore lookout point, that's when I made the decision to run for the party and help and be committed to rebuilding it. Because ultimately, I do think there's a place for our party. And Albertans do deserve, as you said, a third option, right? And I believe we do provide that option.
Well, that's great. Well, I really do appreciate it. And like I said, I was impressed with your optimistic attitude and the way you approached it. You see, I focus on crabbiness and ranting and things such as that. I think there's a role for that as well, of course. But you countered, my point on Mr. Decore and what I'd call reference the party as conservative leaning back in the 90s. And I just think you're taking a good pragmatic approach up there in Edmonton. So I was happy to see that there's still some life going on and somebody with some common sense making a go of it. So where can people find information about your campaign and where you're going, Zach?
Definitely. So they can reach me at my website at zachabdi.ca. And from there, they can find links through from my social media, some of the issues that I'm running on, and any upcoming events as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much again for joining me today, Zach. I think you are the first provincial Liberal I had on this show, and you cap off my final episode of this show. So I appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing how you do up there.
For sure. And I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to end it on a upbeat and positive note.
Great. Thanks, Zach.